Go ahead.
Have to get into. I don't even need to be like focused to get into this. I don't even have to bring up the law of identity to like get into like why this shit is so contradictory, bro. Like bro, we don't need to, nigga. We don't need to. And look at bro, they're putting, oh my god, they're putting like mythological, like theological, mythological religion, like bro, the mythological ideas of religion. Yeah, okay, there we go. I'll put that in, but bro, this is dead ass just sad. Yeah, okay, I already debunked this point. I don't give a fuck if I was, you know, stuttering and shit. I'm not gonna continue these points. We already know how like bullshit this shit is. So, hell nah, bro. Now here's mainly the problem with power scaling wikis in general.
Okay.
Okay, from here on out, he doesn't like talk about the tiering system. He only talks about the issues with using tiering systems at all.
Okay then.
So like, you know,
I guess I don't know. If he doesn't talk about my tier system, then why should I care? The fuck?
I mean, he
Also talked about his
it.
steering, by the way.
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay, continue. Let's see. Let's see if there is an issue. All right.
First off, I'm probably gonna just go by my belief in this case on why I don't necessarily use power scaling wikis, because like most CV users, they basically just use win cons, arguments and shit, and not power scaling wikis. And the reason, like my reason for it is probably kind of the same thing as most people, because if you use a power scaling wiki, like it just feels like, to an extent, right? In VSBW, there's inaccessible cardinals, higher forms and higher narrations of infinity within mathematics, scaling to outer versal or boundless, or in terms of quantum mechanism, etc., and quantum physics, by the ideas of superstition, or like whatever the fuck, you know what I'm saying? And I don't want to just scale my character on that level, right? I want to scale my character onto a new form of a framework. I don't just want to put it onto like just mathematics in this case. The same thing with CSAP. In CSAP, basically, it's just all about, I mean, kind of this, it's basically like this VSBW but higher in this case. VSBW's First Battle Wiki is probably the most famous wiki in probably power scaling history, but mainly CSAP, outer versal is defined as being above all concepts of space and time and dimensionality, existing as aspecial and atemporal, and what you would say being an abstract concept as tonic realism is defined within the outer versal tier. High outer versal is being onto I think it says claims 2 layers between the scope of outer versal, so I think emanations of abstractions, I'm pretty sure. And extra versal, I think it's just being on an infinite layer of what you would say metaphysical layers, that's what you would say. Yeah, it's just on a metaphysical property, but mainly it's still limited to, you know, these types of things. If you just want to scale with one wiki, you need to use these certain things if you want your character to scale to a certain tier, right? It's the same thing with, I mean, to be honest, these ones, they're kind of different, but like we don't want to, you know, determine like the full power of this certain character. And plus, my other reason for this is because most wikis are entirely contradictory, really. For example, what you would say high outer versal, it doesn't have any emphasis for things to be what you would say paraconsistent and true emanations, and also what you would say metaphysical possibilities. It doesn't have any emphasis of that. It just proposes the claim and presupposes that there is in fact and like emphasis of metaphysics and metaphysical idealism, materialism, and dualism in this sense. And you know, it basically goes by this, as some people misinterpret high outer versal and CSAP. They usually do not understand the main definition of it, so it goes contradictory with what they try to say and argue. Because let me just be focused real quick. If y'all know this argument from Focus, he used it against Buga on high outer versal CSAP. He basically said in high outer versal CSAP, since there's layers, and when you have a layer stacking onto something, but being outer versal in this sense is being an abstract concept, right? And layers cannot be put upon an abstract concept because like abstractions by definition are completely super substantial and also unconditioned, so nothing can be stacked upon it or above it, right? And it goes by other things such as this wiki, character scaling wiki, which was the thing we were writing to. This wiki, it's quite legit the same thing as PSW, which goes by the highest tiers, mainly being in a terminology of God in the sense, the main properties and attributes of what God is. Hegel's infinities, Hegel's absolutists, being a supreme being, entirely just true essence. Yeah, that's basically it. It also goes onto the defiance of something being like entirely what you would say non-conceivable, but also saying it's metaphysically conceivable. Like that doesn't make sense because when you refer to a supreme being, it goes abiding to being the greatest conceivable being, having all necessary attributes, right? But a fictional character cannot necessarily have all necessary attributes because if they did, then they would necessarily be, God, right? So
Actually, you don't wanna like address this or some shit?
Yeah, I already addressed that though. Isn't that the same argument as before?
He just said that if a fictional character has all necessary properties, then they will be unnecessarily being or God.
I mean, okay.
I said it more coherently.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
but yeah, metaphysically conceivable. Okay, but the thing is, when from I think from 108 to above, it's not even like ontology or metaphysical. I don't know, like it's not even ontology or metaphysics anymore. It's just like beyond ontology and metaphysics, if that makes sense. Plus, the thing with that is, they are God in their own verse. What's the problem with that? They would necessarily be a God in their own verse. I already said that. Okay, what's the problem with that? They can be aspects of the ultimate reality. I don't see any contradiction. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
They would be essenced by it, right? But you cannot make an ideal notion of a supreme or eternal being at all, because to make an ideal notion, in a sense, since anything that is supreme or falling onto the idea of absolutus or absolutum, it cannot be comprehended through conditional ontology or anything like that. In Aperion, it literally says this, and I quote it: an eternal and self-sufficient state, a generative unity that is greater than and precedes all extensions of being, including ontological perfection itself. By the way, just so you know, being above ontological perfection is one again contradictory because it states that ontological perfection falls into one attribute of God as by definition, right? And it says here if one thing
For the first point, there is no problem with being above ontological perfection again, because there can be the highest aspect of the ultimate reality to be ontologically perfect, and the true ineffable essence of the ultimate reality be like apophatic. There is no problem with that. Like, I don't get it. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
is ontological perfection is perfect itself. It doesn't fall under any properties. It's merely formless because the main idea of God is a supreme being that is ultimate and formless. Being formless,
like, apophatic theology is above it, simply due to the fact that it negates the attribute of being perfect. So I don't see any reason for that being contradictory. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
having no properties, or what you would say, sometimes you can say and argue to like be having no compositions or anything like that, but we're just gonna go abiding no properties. So if you have no properties, then you're technically considered perfect if you're still existential, but having necessary qualities of greatness. Because again, by inference rules and propositional arguments, if God is defined as the greatest conceivable being, then this would mean necessary would be an attribute of greatness. Therefore, God possesses all necessary attributes, right?
No,
Which would mean technically that
God, by Anselm's argument, should not be like bound by thought or imagination. God cannot be conceived. God should be beyond thought and imagination if God is the most perfect being. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
he is perfect in itself, and so with ontological perfection, because anything he has created, you could give the argument that logic in itself is God, like logic is one thing with God, but you could also bring up the argument that logic, or like God, is the main composition of logic, as what you would say. And also, by the way, I forgot to say this, but logic has a negative ontological status, not a positive ontological status. In this case, if you have a negative ontological status, it basically means something cannot be prescribed through positive properties. In this case, so if you cannot be described through positive properties, this means you're necessarily apophatic, as it defines in the old character scaling wiki. Because by the way, I've already mentioned this. Character scaling wiki is made by Axlip, who dick sucks toxic, who made PSW. So as I said
The
again,
thing
it's
is, okay. First off, character scaling wiki is made by me, okay? And I don't dick suck toxic. We are beefing, literally. And the thing with that is, I already said, so like, logic is not negative ontological or whatever the fuck. Logic is literally stated to be like a state of thought. Logic is literally used like for rational scaling and irrational like reasoning, if that makes sense. So like, no, classical logic is positive and non-classical logic is negative. Because why? Non-classical logic is irrationality, inconsistency, and all that shit. But classical logic is basically consistency, irrationality, etc., etc. Like traditional identity, for example. So yeah, I don't get what this nigga means anyways. Yeah, go ahead.
contradictory, because one thing I already put into question is by the main laws of logic, the law of identity, right? So within the law of identity, it states whatever exists is identical to itself in all possible worlds. Am I correct? Yeah. So when you make an ideal notion, again, you prove in characteristics and properties and conditional properties of that thing's existence. But the thing is, if one thing is the greatest conceivable being, then it will also be defined as a being that cannot be conceived because it's greatness, right? It's a supreme being. I've said supreme like 14,000 times in this video. But as I said again, it's regarded onto also the idea of ultimate realities and basically just anything involving divine ideas and divine theories, anything that is related to the terminology of God.
Pause it. This is focused argument for apophatic and stuff. I know that. The thing with that is like, I don't really see any reason for that to be the case here, because apophatic is basically negating like not having identity and not having identity. So like, I don't see the reason here. Even if it doesn't have an identity, that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Yeah, sure, it doesn't exist in actuality, but it exists inside the verse in a literal sense as an aspect. How do you want to say it? As an aspect of apophatic theology. So yeah, go ahead.
God in this sense, which by the way is entirely contradictory. Sure, you can say like a character can be metaphysical. Sure, you can say a character can be paraconsistent. You can say like a character can be even like, you can even argue a character can be metaphysically necessary because you can still make an idea of something like that, right? But for things like ontologically perfect, no, it's not. It's not, because again, by what you would say, the idea of things that are absolute in this case, which are perfect, has an essence or ineffable essence, right? And falls under divine simplicity. So something that is having a main identity with characteristics and properties cannot be actuality, as it's already potentiality. Right? So really here, true infinity necessarily cannot fall under anything of these characters, nor can these characters be.
So the thing with that is like, absolute infinity is like, as I already established, equal to ontological perfection. So the thing with that is, ontological perfection is not whatever MTF is saying. So like, ontological perfection just means like, the existence of character is like perfect. The character contains perfection universally. The character is like basically everything and nothing, etc., etc. So like, perfection in that sense is like that. So like, being nothingness or whatever the fuck doesn't mean you don't exist in a literal sense whatsoever. Yeah, go ahead.
Be pure beings in the sense as they still are composed of natural ideas, within the mind, right? Because again, if you talk about the greatest conceivable being, you cannot make an idea of a fictional character that scales to the greatest conceivable being. Because in this case, you cannot make an idea of something apophatic or ineffable in this case. So yeah, this is just the entire problem with
the character being apophatic inside the verse. Like, character doesn't necessarily have to be apophatic for us. Like, the fuck, like.
Oh, MTF is not listening to you in this video. Relax.
Huh? The fuck, nigga?
He's not listening to you in the video.
Oh, okay, bro. Alright, yeah. Go ahead, go ahead. I was just making a video addressing your stuff, but whatever. Yeah.
tiering systems. As it is, most of them are entirely contradictory. Most of them are just entirely either mid, in this case, and just weak as fuck and just with a bunch of fucking retards. But as you know, this was just discussing a new wiki I found out, and yeah, it's ass. That's all I have to say about this wiki. It fucking sucks. So I'll see you later, niggas. Peace out.
Alright, bro.